In 1947, in a small New York apartment, an 85-year-old man died quietly, nearly broke, and mostly forgotten. His final bills weren't even paid by him. They were covered by other men, out of something close to pity. That man had founded General Motors. He had founded Chevrolet. He built what would become the largest corporation on planet Earth and one of the most famous car brands in history. He made and lost a fortune once estimated near $1 billion, and he did it not once, but twice. And he spent the last working years of his life running a bowling alley. This is the almost unbelievable story of Billy Durant, the forgotten founder of General Motors, and the greatest rise and fall you've never heard. William Crapo Durant was born in 1861, the grandson of a Michigan governor and lumber baron. On paper, privilege. In reality, his father abandoned the family, and young Billy dropped out of high school at 17. But he had one gift that would carry him further than any diploma. He could sell anything to anyone. He started out moving cigars and lumber, and everyone who met him remembered the same thing. The man was magnetic. Then, in 1886, one ride changed everything. Durant climbed into a friend's two-wheeled cart and was so impressed by how smoothly it rode that he did something insane. He asked where it was built, boarded a train to the factory 75 miles away, and bought the entire company that same afternoon for around $1,500. He didn't know the first thing about making carts. He just knew he could sell them. He talked a man named Josiah Dort into partnering with him, and together they built the Durant-Dort Carriage Company. Within a few years, it was one of the largest carriage makers in the entire country, turning Flint, Michigan into a vehicle-building capital. By the age of 40, Billy Durant was a millionaire. He had conquered the horse-drawn world, and he was about to bet everything on the machine that would kill it. At first, Durant wanted nothing to do with cars. He thought they were noisy, dirty, dangerous contraptions, a rich man's toy that would never last. Then he changed his mind completely. In 1904, he took control of a small local car company that was drowning in debt and about to shut its doors for good, Buick. Everyone else saw a failure. Durant saw raw potential and an empty market. He poured in the resources of his carriage empire and unleashed his greatest weapon, his salesmanship. And it worked beyond anyone's wildest expectations. In just 4 years, he turned the dying Buick into the best-selling automobile in America. By 1908, Buick was outselling Ford and Cadillac combined. But building the #1 car company in America wasn't enough for Billy Durant. He didn't want to win the game. He wanted to own the whole board. In 1908, Durant founded General Motors, not as a single car company, but as an empire designed to swallow all the others. And he started swallowing. Buick, then Oldsmobile, then Cadillac, then Oakland, which you know today as Pontiac, plus a dozen more car makers and parts suppliers. Durant bought them up in a whirlwind, assembling the pieces of a giant almost overnight. And here's where his genius really showed. His great rival, Henry Ford, bet everything on a single, cheap, identical car, the Model T. Durant bet the opposite. He believed people wanted choice, a different car for every income and every taste, a car for every purse and every purpose. That idea, a ladder of brands from affordable to luxury, is the exact model that still runs the entire auto industry today, 100 years later. Durant was right. He was just about to learn that being right and staying in control are two very different things. Durant had built his empire the same way he did everything, fast, on instinct, and on borrowed money. He bought companies so quickly that some of them turned out to be nearly worthless, and the debt piled up dangerously. Then the market shifted under him. Buyers flocked to Ford's cheap, reliable Model T, and the demand for the bigger, pricier cars GM specialized in dried up. General Motors had 21 different models across 10 divisions, and most of them weren't making money. Almost overnight, Durant's reputation flipped from visionary genius to reckless gambler. In 1910, GM ran out of cash. To get the loan that would save the company, Durant had to accept a brutal condition. He had to hand control of his own creation over to the bankers. They took his baby and they pushed him out the door. He was still a wealthy man, but he had just lost the empire he'd built from nothing. Any normal person would have retired, licked their wounds, counted their blessings. Billy Durant declared war. Thrown out of GM, Durant immediately went looking for his next weapon, and he found it in a fearless Swiss race car driver named Louis Chevrolet, a former Buick racer famous for his nerve behind the wheel. Together, in 1911, they launched a brand new company and put Chevrolet's name on it. Chevrolet took off, and as it grew, Durant hatched a plan so audacious it had never been done before. He was going to use his new company to buy back his old one. Quietly, methodically, Durant traded on Chevrolet's success to buy up shares of General Motors, backed by one of the wealthiest families in America, the DuPonts. He bought and bought until he controlled more than half of GM's stock. And in 1916, 6 years after they threw him out, Billy Durant walked back into General Motors as the man in charge. The founder had bought back his own empire, using a company he'd built from scratch just to do it. It is still one of the most stunning comebacks in the history of American business, though it came with a quiet, bitter footnote. Durant had fallen out with Louis Chevrolet and bought him out in 1914. Louis walked away with relatively little, while the name Chevrolet went on to become one of the most valuable in the entire world. And the second fall back on top, Durant went even bigger. He folded Chevrolet into GM, bought Fisher Body and the appliance maker Frigidaire, and brought in the men who would define the company, including a brilliant inventor named Charles Kettering and a quiet, methodical organizer named Alfred Sloan. In just 4 years, General Motors grew 8 times larger, but Durant had a fatal flaw. He was, at his core, a gambler, and by now, Wall Street had captured his heart more than the company ever could. He spent less and less time running GM and more time playing the stock market. Then, in 1920, the post-war boom collapsed. Stocks fell hard, 100,000 businesses went under, and GM's stock price crumbled. And Durant did something noble and reckless in equal measure. Feeling personally responsible for the thousands of ordinary shareholders who had trusted him, he began secretly buying up GM stock with his own money, on borrowed margin, trying to hold the price up with his bare hands. It didn't work. 6 months later, $90 million of Durant's personal fortune had simply evaporated. To save the company, the DuPonts and the bankers stepped in and bailed out GM one more time, on one non-negotiable condition. Durant had to resign completely and never come back. For the second time, the founder was forced out of his own company. He was 59 years old, and now, for the first time in his life, deeply in debt, and still, he refused to stop. Within weeks of losing GM, Durant founded an entirely new car company, Durant Motors, and set out to build a third empire from scratch at an age when most men retire. And in the roaring 1920s, he became one of the most famous speculators on Wall Street, nicknamed the Bull of the Bulls. He was betting bigger than ever. And then came the year that broke a generation of gamblers. When the market crashed in 1929, Durant threw his money into the collapse itself, trying to prop up the market to show the public his confidence. The market swallowed it whole. His car company, Durant Motors, was liquidated in 1933, and in 1936, the man who had built the largest company in the world twice filed for personal bankruptcy. The fortune, the empire, the fame, gone. Most stories would end there. Durant's didn't. In 1940, broke and 78 years old, Billy Durant did the single most Durant thing imaginable. He started over one more time and opened a bowling alley in Flint, right in the shadow of an enormous General Motors plant that existed because of him. Everyone told him it was a crazy idea. The building was a badly converted old truck depot, sitting right across from a church, hardly the place for a bowling hall. Durant's response was pure Durant. "It would be bowling without beer," he said. "Clean, wholesome, family entertainment." And he was certain family fun was the next great American business. He planned to build a chain of 30 of them across the country. He even built one of the country's first fast food drive-in restaurants right there at the bowling alley. And at nearly 80 years old, worked the kitchen himself. Think about that. The man had dreamed of a nation covered in freeways while he was still building horse carts. He'd bet on refrigerators before people had them, and now here he was, inventing fast food and the family entertainment center. Decades before either took over America, he was, one final time, right too early. In 1942, a stroke ended the bowling empire before it could begin. Billy Durant spent his final years living quietly in New York, his bills paid by the very men and families who had taken his empire from him. Alfred Sloan arranged a pension, and men like the DuPonts and the Chryslers quietly helped cover his expenses. The people who inherited his kingdom made sure its founder didn't die in the gutter. In 1947, he died in that apartment at the age of 85, nearly broke and largely forgotten by the country he'd helped put on wheels. And that's the part that still stops you cold. Every single day, millions of people drive Chevrolets, work for General Motors, or earn a living from the industry Billy Durant shaped with his bare hands, and almost none of them know his name. He built two of the most powerful names in American history and got to keep neither. A banker once called him an unstable visionary. The truth is, he was both, completely. The dreamer who saw the future clearer than anyone and could never quite hold on to it. Just another piece of forgotten American iron. Only this time, it wasn't a machine. It was the man who built the machines. If this one moved you, the video on screen now is another American legend history left behind. Thanks for watching.